I bought this Hanwei William Marshall sword from Arms of Valor in their kind of a scratch and dent sale. I'm not going to do a review on the sword so much as demonstrate how I improved this sword. It's basically an entry-level medieval sword. This William Marshall sword is a long one-hander based on a design that's found in a museum in England that was apparently owned by Sir William Marshall, a famous knight. The sword's point of balance at 7.5 inches. It was quite unwieldy, and there was very little distal taper to give this blade some narrowness. It actually came down and was quite bulbous. There's a fuller down the middle with a large rise down each side of the fuller, and when the fuller ended there was a very thick bulbous tip down here, and it gave it a lot of tip weight. It wasn't a friendly sword to use. Now what I did was took a flat bastard file and started about 7.5 inches down near the point of balance, and I started shaving down the ridges that are on both sides of the fuller. And as I get down, I ground more and more off as I went down. It took a couple of nights to do this, and took out the thickness that was at the end of the fuller here near the tip. I managed to take about 4 ounces off this blade. I worked both sides very carefully with the file, and then I wet sanded it with a sanding block and 700 grit paper to make it nice and smooth again. That brought the point of balance back a little bit more. Then I went out and tested the sword to make sure that I hadn't interfered with the structural integrity of the sword. I did a little bit of light cutting with it. Here's an example of that. When I was satisfied that the sword was still structurally sound, I went ahead and drilled holes in both sides of this hollow pommel on a drill press. Then I took lead shot from a number 7.5 shotgun shell and used weld bond epoxy and put it in layers inside here to build up. I took about 2 ounces of lead. I think I actually added a bit more after that when I found I had more room. Layering the lead and the epoxy, the weld bond is a good thing to use because it's cheap, but also it doesn't dry hard and brittle. It stays semi-pliable, and so when this is being impacted, it won't break up and shatter with the lead inside there, giving me a rattle and everything inside there eventually. Hopefully it'll hold together for a long time. Then I had I bought some buttons, just some black domed buttons, and I put wires through them and looped them through, and when the epoxy dried, of course, they're well cemented into place. So I managed to take this sword from an original point of balance of about 7.5 inches back to about 6 inches, and the blade is much more lively, handles much better that way. So I cleaned up the edge on it as well, and did some more cutting with it after the weight was added to the pommel. And this is that footage. Like all these Hanwei entry-level swords, the William Marshall has a glued leather handle, which the seams sometimes start to come apart in the glue. They're very unremarkable as far as their fittings and furniture, but for what they are and for what they cost, they're a great little sword. And then you get one like this that you can do some modifications to, makes it an even better sword, and you're ready to go with it. So there's the Hanwei William Marshall sword.